Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the McGonagall Boxing Podcast. Let's just go straight through it live. You know, I'm really thankful for everyone listening. I think the beauty of it doing live is less editing, less constant kind of planning, just shoot from the hip. The best podcasts that I listen to do that. So if there is a bit of and ahhing, so what? We're going to speak passionately. That's what I try and do. I try and give you the facts, but I also try and give you my opinions and my hard-earned passion for boxing. So that's what I'm going to do from now on. But let's get straight to it, shall we? Kell Brook. Kell Brook's come out today and said, I've pretty much given up on the Khan fight. It's over. It's never going to happen. He's finally resigned himself to accepting the Khan fight is never going to happen. Bizarrely, I still don't think you can say never. They're both still 33, so they're young enough for it to still happen. They've both just got enough credibility. They're ranked both inside the top 10 still in all the governing bodies. And so they've got that world-class credibility. It's not a huge global fight anymore, but it will still sell in the States. But it will still be massive in the UK because their personalities. They've built a long CV, and people, a bit like Frank Bruno and Bogner back in the early 80s, they accepted they weren't the best in the division, but they were personalities, and that's what the UK likes. So it will be pay-per-view, and I think it would sell out Amir Arena. Wembley's a push now. 4 or 5 years ago, absolutely Wembley would have been a headliner. I'm not sure now, but Eddie Hearn, I know he's got his faults, but he's a fantastic promoter. Still working with Khan and Brook both. They could push it and sell it at Wembley as well. So it's still a massive fight in the UK and still the biggest payday. And ironically now, the less threat. Because let's face it, the big boys in the welterweight division are going to clean Brook and Khan's clock out now. Khan especially. I think Brook is more competitive. I think Brook has aged better. He looked much better reunited with Ingle in his last fight. Yes, these are C-class fighters. He's fought the last couple of fights, but the way he dispatched his last opponent was very, very impressive, and he's the right move to get back to Ingle. So personally, I think Brooks will be more competitive against the likes of Crawford, against the likes of Spence if he rematches. He's probably not going to win these fights anymore, but I think he'll be far more competitive than Khan would be. So really, the big money fight and the less risk for both of them is to fight each other. But at the same time, I can also see it now never happening as well. So although I haven't completely resigned to it like Brook has, I would say it's 80% chance it's not going to happen now. Why? Because if it was going to happen, it would have happened by now. No question. The time to fight one another for me was back in 2015, both in their prime. Kell Brook had a world title, just beating Sean Porter for it. Khan was on a win streak, just looked fantastic, beating Algieri, who gave Pacquiao, a decent challenge for 6 rounds before obviously getting overwhelmed. And, he was kind of ranked highly. He absolutely toyed with Devin Alexander, who obviously was a world-class champion in his day. And Khan was on a roll with Hunter, Virgil Hunter, Andre Ward's trainer. Brook was on a roll. It was huge. And they were both arguably the top 2 welterweights at the time. That's when it should have happened. But ultimately, Khan, some say big balls, I say career suicide, jumped up 2 divisions to fight one of the best middleweights at the time, Canelo, and of course got knocked out, and he's never been the same fighter since. For me now, he's just been chasing the payday, whereas at that time he was a competitive fighter, ranked highly of all the welterweight, WBO, WBC, IBF. He had all the big money fights in the welterweight division. He didn't need to take that challenge. For me, I think he avoided Brook, if I'm being totally honest. That was the time to make it. That was the huge fight. And instead, he gambled on the big money payday with nothing to lose. He kind of knew in many ways he wasn't going to win against Canelo. As soon as Canelo landed, that was that. So it was just career suicide. But ironically, almost like Brook is trying to outdo Khan somehow in career suicide, he then takes on GGG. Who's like even more of a risk at the time, 2016. And that was career suicide, wasn't it? Because yes, he was competitive in the first couple of rounds, but ultimately got beaten up towards the end of the fight, as you would expect, jumping up 2 weights, and his eye socket, went. And that is a serious injury. A lot of fighters have had to retire. Look at Agogo just having to retire because of a similar injury. So, for me, Brook was never the same after that Triple G fight. And you'll hear Hearn say, well, he took the money to the payday. You got to risk big to earn big. Yes, but again, Brook was in the prime of his career. I would understand if there was no big money fights at welterweight. I would have gone, absolutely, you go for that big payday and that risk against Triple G. But there were plenty of big fights. You still had Spence coming up. You still had Terence Crawford, Manny Pacquiao. All these big fighters around. You could have had, and you didn't need to go up to jump up 2 divisions for the big payday back then. So both have had career suicides, and both, ironically, I don't think have been the same since, which, unfortunately for me then squashed that real kind of, oh my goodness, Kell Brook, we've got to see it. Because as soon as they got beaten, albeit a middleweight, a lot of their lustre, their confidence, their swagger, especially Brooks, devalued. And then obviously he lost his title in the next fight against Spence, and that was kind of then suddenly, Brook hasn't got anything for Khan to offer, has he? There's a perfect out for Khan to accept that he's been beaten twice now. Khan even called Brook a quitter, which I felt was unfair, because obviously Brook's eye problems resurfaced in the Spence fight, which I had him winning for large parts. Absolutely outstanding fight, up for 10 rounds. And that was he's out, wasn't it? Khan said hasn't got a belt now, he hasn't got any credibility, and that should have really been the big warning sign. Okay, this fight's never going to happen back in 2017. But who do I blame more than anyone? To be honest with you, I blame Khan. I mean, I think deep down he knew Brook had his number. I don't care what Khan says. Yes, he had speed, hand speed, but so did Brook. He wasn't as quick with his hands or feet, but didn't matter because he was quick enough to catch Khan, who I believe always played with fire too long. He didn't have the total discipline that he would need, and I think Brook would have caught up with him. And as soon as Brook landed, a bit like Froch and Groves, you're always waiting for Froch to land on Groves. Same thing with Brook and Khan. I can see Khan prime for prime, winning a lot of the early rounds, probably going the same way as he did with Canelo. Outboxing Brook, showing his speed, but ultimately slowing down enough the mid-rounds for Brook to catch up with him, hurt him, hit him. Khan's a better boxer. Unfortunately, it's not a cliche to say he had a glass chin, and that is not good when you're fighting a massive, heavy welterweight like Brook and a big puncher like Brook. So that would ultimately be the difference, and I don't care if it had been 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17. Certainly now, that's how I see it playing out. I always had Brook winning that fight by KO. Ironically, a similar fashion to the Canelo fight, around 7-8, with Khan winning the early rounds with his boxing skills. It's just a shame, but if anyone's to blame, I blame Khan. I think Brook, you can see he's actively tried to pursue this fight over the years, tried to make this fight happen, continually called him out, Khan, and Khan's always kind of rejected it, neglected it, or come up with some, false excuse or some reason, and then he's kind of gone into the big money fight. Yes, you could say that's a good reason, but is it when you know deep down you haven't got much chance of winning? And he's still trying to do the same thing now, isn't he? He's holding out for a Manny Pacquiao fight, looking at the money rather than you know, accepting he could earn just as much money with Brook now. So it's frustrating. If anyone's to blame, it's Amir Khan for me, for this fight not happening. Why? Because, like I've said, I believe Brook had his number, and I think deep down he also knows that Kell Brook would have had his number. It's a shame. It's going to be one of them fights again that got away, a bit like Hatton and Junior Witter. You know, clash of world-class Brits we don't see. All we can do now is try and learn from these lessons, these stubborn lessons they both had. Especially now they got the same promoter, is even more frustrating. But you just got to hope that the same thing doesn't go with Fury and Joshua now. That's the fight now that we need to make sure happens while they're still in their prime and they're both still world champions. We've got to learn from this Khan and Brook affair and make sure it doesn't happen again, because we've lost a huge fight that would have gone down in history back in 2015 at Wembley, and the money it would have generated. Anyway, guys, I'm out. Thank you so much. I'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully a little bit more positive podcast, a bit downcast with this one, I know. It's a sad news today with Brook finally accepting it's over between him and Khan. But ultimately, never say never in boxing, but I'd say 90% he's probably right. All right, guys, I'm out. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.